Can I turn steak into a cocktail? I own a Brazilian barbecue restaurant and bar, and what we focus so heavily on is churrasco, or Brazilian barbecue. And that uses a lot of steak, like picanha. And the picanha is an absolutely amazing, beautiful cut of meat that to many Brazilians is the best cut of meat ever, even more so than the filet mignon. It just has so much flavor, this amazing fat that just gets rendered down as you cook it. But the question remains, can you make a cocktail using steak?
And so the first step of incorporating steak into a cocktail is turning it into an ingredient that we can actually use, like a liquid. I mean, cocktails are made out of liquid.
All right, let's render some of this fat down.
One of the best parts about the picanha is its fat.
Look at how that fat is rendering. I'm just gonna get rid of this fat. It's gonna go to the waste anyway. Look at all that. That's what we want right there. But I do want the flavor of the picanha as well. So we're gonna fry this fat side down in there too. Well, might as well season it a little bit if we're gonna eat it, so.
And so the way that we're going to incorporate steak into a cocktail is with a technique called fat washing.
I'm gonna let that finish there because I don't want that to get too dark. And then we're going to grab this and we're going to just put it in here, set it aside. That's all that lovely goodness that we have right there.
So what is fat washing? Fat washing is the process of infusing a spirit with a type of fat. And the type of fat that you can use is super varied. You can do things like meat fat, like bacon, duck, beef, things like that, to butter, olive oil, coconut oil, all of these different things. And the reason why you do it is that you're infusing a spirit with a very specific kind of texture, a kind of savoriness, and it's kind of an advanced, clever technique that allows you to really play with and push the bounds of what a spirit or cocktail can taste like. And it kind of rose to prominence in the mid-2000s at PDT, which is an amazing speakeasy in New York. If you've never been, highly recommend you check it out. Don Lee created this cocktail called the Benton's Old Fashioned. And this was an old fashioned that Don Lee created using a fat washing of this very specific type of bacon or ham from a very specific farm that he got this bacon from. And he created an old fashioned with it. And then that kind of really helped to popularize the fat washing technique. And the other day, I had a guest at my bar who came up to me and was like, "Hey man, you should really try maybe doing like a picanha fat wash of like a cachaça or something." And so here we are.
So we're gonna take our rendered picanha fat that we separated out and let chill down, and we're gonna separate it equally into 2 separate mason jars. And then we're going to fill up each mason jar with a different spirit to run a little bit of an experiment. We're gonna do one with an aged cachaça and one with an aged bourbon. It was about 2 ounces of fat for a regular 16-ounce pint mason jar. And then we're going to shake it up and let it infuse for about an hour or so.
And then after about an hour of shaking it every so often, you're gonna put it in the freezer overnight.
And then on the following day, we took it out of our freezer and we were left with these 2 mason jars that you can clearly see the fat at the top there with the rest of the liquid below, which didn't freeze. And that separated the fat out from the spirit. But now we need to strain it. And so we're gonna grab a strainer into a cup. You can use a cheesecloth if you have one. I was being kind of lazy in this instance. And I strained out the cachaça first, and then we're going to do the same with the bourbon. This one proved a little bit more difficult because the fat seemed to congeal a little bit more, so you had to kind of punch through it. And then we're able to strain that one out as well. And then I just had to see what this fat looked like. And so then we had our 2 picanha fat wash spirits. Now the fun part.
And so let's taste this by itself, and then we will taste it in a cocktail. I might try to make a Benton's Old Fashioned with this one to see how it tastes like, and then we're gonna try a cachaça cocktail to see how this one tastes like, see if we can actually see any difference. But all right, so let's first give this a smell. Oh gosh, okay, so the cachaça is cool because you can you do get some of those hints of picanha, but the cachaça flavor is still very strong and really comes through. And let's give this bourbon a sniffy sniff. Whew, whew. Okay, so you still smell that bourbon, but you definitely get some of that picanha fat flavor. Aromas, I should say. Pour these out. That kind of tastes like a cachaça that's been at a barbecue all afternoon, hanging out by the grill, sneaking a couple of pieces of meat every couple of minutes. It's actually quite enjoyable. It's different. It has this nice savory silkiness to it, but it doesn't take away from the cachaça. It still very much tastes like a lightly aged cachaça. And now let's give the bourbon a sip. Oh wow, the bourbon is quite harsh. It tastes like the bourbon, but it's like the picanha just like grew in flavor there, and it's interesting. It adds that savory, silky kind of texture to the bourbon, and it kind of rounds it out a little bit. Let's see how this does in a cocktail. We're gonna make a classic Benton's Old Fashioned. All right, so let's grab our mixing glass. We're gonna do 2 ounces of our picanha fat wash bourbon. This was 4 roses, by the way. We are going to do some maple syrup. Usually they say that the lower grade, or I guess like, usually they say to go for like something a little bit thicker. I'm using a grade A maple syrup. A lot of the recipes that I've seen suggest like a grade B or even grade D, because it keeps a lot of the original flavor, I guess, something like that. We're gonna do just a 1/4 ounce of our maple syrup. We'll do 2 dashes of Angostura. And we're gonna add a stir mixing glass, stir it down until it's nice, gelatin diluted. And strain this over a large cube. All right, and express 1 orange peel over the top. All right. Oh, that's funky. It's weird. I don't know if it's good. I like using maple syrup in an old fashioned. I think it gives it a nice, savory, interesting element, and I think that the fat washing also rounds it out. All right, before I give you my thoughts, let's make the other cocktail. So with the cachaça, I want to make a more boozy, spirit-forward cocktail to really get kind of the essence of that picanha fat washing. So we're gonna make probably one of my favorite cachaça cocktails, the rabo de galo, which is a very, very classic, which is a very popular Brazilian cocktail. But we're gonna tweak it a little bit to make the cachaça more the star of the show. So we're going to do 1.5 ounces of our picanha fat wash cachaça. And we're going to do 3/4 ounce of chinar and 3/4 ounce of sweet vermouth. Fill it up with ice. And then this one, I like to do a little bit of a lime peel, just for that extra added level of bitterness. Put that right in there. Okay, that's funky. That's pretty good. I like that you still get a lot of the cachaça, but you do get to taste that picanha as well. It gives it this nice added silkiness to it. You still taste the chinar and the sweet vermouth, but it definitely does add another layer on top of this cocktail. So what's kind of the final verdict here? One thing I will say, and I think that truthfully it might just be because of the type of fat, the picanha doesn't really taste a lot like the picanha. It tastes like the cachaça tastes very good for the most part. I really enjoyed that one. Old fashioned, not so much. Maybe instead of doing a main spirit, maybe doing something like a fat washing of chinar, which is traditionally a little bit, it's very bitter. Having a fat washing of this might have actually worked way better in the rabo de galo that we made, because you still would have gotten the cachaça, you still would have gotten the picanha, but it actually would have rounded out the chinar a little bit more. But all in all, a very fun technique to play with if you're a home bartender, or if you really just want to kind of wow your friends and guests. But if you want to learn how to make your own cocktails, I have an entire other video that you can check out right over here next.